Welcome, Ryan Fisher.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, and this is Ryan Fisher. He's a realtor in the Valrico area, and we're going to get into his life story and get some advice moving to Florida and all kinds of stuff. You know, this is the Florida Housing Hour podcast, and I always like to say there's no format. There's no cage that we're in. So we just get here and we talk.
It's perfect.
And we chat and we go back and forth and talk about, you know, whatever. So we're here to do it. We try to keep it real estate related and Florida related, but who knows? You know, things might go off. So
Yep.
We'll see. So my first question, you know, who is Ryan and what does he do? Where's he coming from?
So I grew up in Buffalo, New York, small town, Elma, New York. Went to Iroquois High School. Went to Canisius College, which is a smaller school in the city of Buffalo. Had a few jobs after college, and then decided that after I moved to the tri-state area, that I wanted to try and pursue a career in law enforcement. So I applied to New York State Police, and then I applied to the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office down here in Tampa. My application ended up coming through faster for Hillsborough County, so I ended up coming down here, starting training, and then after being down here for about 4 months, the application for New York came through. So I had the decision if I was going to stay down here and continue or head back, and I decided that I was going to stay in Tampa. So I've been down here now almost 7 years. Been a deputy sheriff with the sheriff's office, started real estate probably 2.5 years ago now. Had my license up in New York as well, but ended up moving down here before I could even do my first sale up in New York. It's just always been an interest, so I'm glad that I was able to take the step down here and get involved.
Nice. So Buffalo to New York, another New York transplant.
Correct.
So we see a lot of you guys here in Florida. So that's you were here before the rush. You know, we call it the rush after COVID, when everybody kind of flooded here.
So I was here at a time when I was a new deputy. I was working at the tax collector's office. So when you're at the tax collector's office, you see firsthand all of the transplants coming in because you're sitting next to the queue, and all of these people are coming up and talking to the admin at the front desk and like, need to change an out-of-state license. And the amount of times that you hear that in one day is it's pretty frequent. So it starts to add up, and then as it got closer and closer and COVID passed, you started to see a lot more people moving down. People being stuck in the house, and it was pretty eye-opening. Yeah,
you can feel it here, living here. You can feel the population surge for sure.
It feels like snowbirds came down and never went home, but it's been like that for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah,
now.
Yeah, that's great. So did you work at one tax collector, or did you rotate through different ones?
There was one that I worked at. It was like a small off-duty job, and it was up off of MLK, just a small. They just did license transfers, so no vehicle, no title transfers or anything like that.
The last time I went to the Plant City location over off of Sydney Road, and that place is that's huge. Place is huge. It does everything. It's got all the state taxes and DMV and like everything.
That's the one that they just redid, right?
Mm-hmm. Or built. I think they just built it.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it was in a different part of town, and they went over to that county land and put it in. So I think we try to keep that one a secret because everybody wants to get an appointment faster, and the first place they go is Plant City because it's not as busy and it's big.
Well, it's hidden off of Sydney Road too.
Yeah, it's in a weird spot.
Which makes it a little bit harder to find, but try going to Falconberg Road, just south MLK, any time of the day, and forget about it.
It's terrible. I went there one time. I'll try not to ever have to go back. I try not to have to go there at all, unless you got business there or something.
Yeah,
I had a motorcycle. I had to transfer away when I sold it and get the title right. I had to get the title right first before I could sell it, and then get it sold. So nothing I could do online. I had to do it all in person. So that's cool. So that's a pretty big decision, right? To pick New York versus Florida to start a career.
So I actually decided so I bought a house when I was 24 in Buffalo, and I stayed there with my girlfriend, my now wife, for probably 14 months, 12 months. I got a job offer to go out to New Jersey. It was a year contract that I signed. So I went out. I absolutely hated New Jersey, just the location that I was in. I was constantly traveling, and I just wanted to settle down somewhere. And I know that, long term, I told her not to come out to New Jersey because I didn't see myself staying out there. So I said, just wait for the next place that I decide to go, and let's see if it's feasible for you to start your career, transfer your career there. So Florida was much more appealing, and then it all worked out. She got a transfer for work, and she moved down. When she first moved down here, we were in an apartment, and then for zoning for work, I wanted to get into a specific area. So I went and bought a house in 2 days, basically looking at it at night with a flashlight. It's a ridiculous story looking back. It really worked out for us, honestly. We lived there for probably a year and a half. I ended up working night shift in Valrico for a few years, found the next neighborhood that I wanted to move to. So I ended up buying a home in 2019 that was 1,000 square feet bigger than that one, with a pool. And we did some slight renovations, nothing serious. And then COVID hit, and then we saw what the pricing did. So just on that home alone, I think with the small renovations that we did and in COVID hitting, I think we made like $220,000 gross on it.
Yeah.
And then we were like,
great.
Okay, we need to flip that money into something else. So then that's when we signed on a new build. And then that one we just finished October of 2022. So we've just been getting settled in that one. They just started our pool dig this week. So we're excited to see what this one, turns out to be.
Yeah.
By summertime.
Right. So you bought the pool after, right? That's not a builder
Correct.
thing, right? You just put that in later.
So some of the neighborhoods, they'll let you sign. Like I know West Bay has a partnership with Tampa Bay Pools. Some of the neighborhoods, they'll let you just sign, and they'll do them simultaneously, the house and the pool. When I bought this house, it was at like peak business. So I noticed that they weren't giving the option. The only house that had a pool that was being built was the model. And they ended up selling that home, only after a few months. They didn't even make it a full model. They didn't furnish it completely. So you're starting to see the neighborhood transition. You're starting to see the pool signs. And I think there's at least 5 under construction at this point in a 35 home neighborhood.
Wow.
So
that's cool.
I'm anticipating even more in the summer. It's just, people are trying to get settled. And
Yeah. And, it's expensive right now. Pools are kind of through the roof when it comes to supplies, and we went through that whole issue with supply chain and materials and these huge problems of material cost overruns and just crazy amounts of money involved.
So
it's never been cheap to put one in, but it's even worse now.
Obviously during COVID and the years after, people were at home working from home. So, having a pool was much more appealing. So I thought that once people started to return back to work, the prices would come down, and they just haven't.
No.
Like just been pricing them out, and it just hasn't changed. So I think what I'm realizing is people still have disposable income that they're spending because the pool builder is still busy, and they don't seem to be hurting at all. And I keep seeing signs going up in the yard. So
right. Yeah, they're gonna, if you want one, you're gonna get one. I always told my wife that we wouldn't put in a pool because there's so many houses in Florida that already have pools. And so why go through the trouble of digging and building and paying full retail price for one when you go and buy one already built? And then the last house we wound up with, we don't have a pool. The one we had a pool at our last house and loved it. And this first pool that we had together and like at our house that we lived in, and we loved it. The kids loved it. And now I regret not having one because they love it, But the Y, my son swims at the Y. He's on their swim team there, so it's easy to get there. It's 5 minutes from our house, and it's super, big pool, slides, the whole thing. So we still go to the water a lot, but it's not just in the backyard. And in the summertime, it's so nice because you just float around and spend all day in there. Let it get dark, go and get a shower and go to bed. That's always what I liked about that.
That's the truth. So you always think that you don't use it that much, which may be the case, but the day that you don't have it is the day that you think you would use it.
Yeah.
So then it's the mental game of, well, I think we need that back.
Yep.
I think my wife was much quicker to pull the trigger on the pool part of it, but I think timing wise and everything else, I mean, if interest rates start to come back down, just like everything, you're going to start to see the pool market, I think, pick back up as well. So I wasn't opposed at this point in getting it, and I don't want to create the mess later on, especially because you start doing landscaping and getting everything the way you want it, and then having you got the bobcats,
bulldozers and stuff running through there. Yeah, exactly. And if you're going to be one of the first ones in the neighborhood to have one, are you going to be one of the first?
So the model has one. There's one person ahead of us in the progression. And then we were fortunate enough to have some great neighbors. The neighbor right next to us, I spoke with him early on before he even moved in. He decided that he was going to do a pool through Tampa Bay Pools. So they're actually simultaneously digging both.
Oh, I'm sure they love that.
Which kind of helps out with access to our yard.
Yeah.
I mean, as you know, the standoff room to the easements they're pretty narrow, the distance in between these homes. So
yeah, that's cool. So that's good that that'll put you in a better position later if you do want to do anything later, because you'll be established and everything is ready to go.
That's it. I mean, we did everything that we wanted to do for this home long term, but our ultimate goal is to get to the water on the intercoastal and either St. Peter, Tampa. So I think that having this house completely done, and having it be appealing for another, large family to come in there, was just one of our goals, to get it done so we can enjoy it, but then also have it to the point where it's marketable if we need to sell it.
Did you say, did I miss who the builder was?
West Bay builder.
It is West Bay. Okay. Yeah. I know you said, I didn't know that was your builder. So they, what was your experience with a new build versus, let me try to count here. You had your New York home, first one, and then one in Valrico.
Then I was in Diamond Hill in Valrico.
So 2 in Valrico, and then the West Bay.
So we did the one in New York, one in Diamond Hill, the one in Citrus Wood across from Valrico Elementary. We sold that one, and then we went to West Bay, which is down off of Durant.
So you've got 3 resales, right? This is your first new build.
Yep.
What's your experience as a buyer, not a realtor, but as a buyer on a new construction versus a resale?
As a buyer walking through a home that's already established and you've already had, one or multiple families live in it previously, is you start to see everything that you want to change, and you're excited, but it also becomes overwhelming because you see all the work that you want to do when you first move in. I think when you're at a new build stage, it's convenient because you're picking out all of the stuff that you want yourself. But you are paying a premium for that. Like there is, when you actually see what's included on a new build, and I don't care what builder you're using. Yeah.
The models are very different than
the models are. It's model shock when you walk in there and you see the difference between what's included and what they've upgraded. Substantially different. So actually today, I stopped home before I came in here. We have a company coming in to do like a board and batten wall in our upstairs living room. And it's just crazy to see the upsell from the builders compared to finding a reputable contractor and just paying their price compared to what the builder would have charged you.
It's been like that forever, though. Even back in the early 2000s when, things were going nuts, you could really get a good deal if you did your own trim carpentry contracting. If you hired the guy to come and do crown molding versus having the builder do it. And I've saw that's where there's a little little market around that, because they know that those trim carpenters and those specialty like improvements places, not like a general redo kitchens and stuff, but like your high end cosmetic stuff, that's their bread and butter. Like when these new houses go in, they make a killing, because a lot of times they get that work from the builder, and then if they don't, they'll get it from the buyer a year or two later.
So what I've noticed is probably you're going to pay 30% more going through the builder, having the exact same like trim work or something like that done after the fact. So you're basically paying for the convenience. Like last night I was moving furniture and the area prepped so that these guys could come into work.
Yeah.
Where if I would have paid the builder initially, it would have been,
You just move into it.
I just moved in. It would have been easier. But I think that there's an accountability aspect when you have another party come in, because I met this contractor today. He obviously wants a positive experience for us. He wants a positive review. So I think they're much more driven to make sure that the quality's there. And plus, we're going to be there to inspect it at the end of the day before he gets payment.
Right.
Whereas
with a builder, you're like 3 times removed from the person doing the work.
There's zero accountability going
Right.
back to those contractors. So I think that they're less likely to rush, and things tend to look a little bit better.
Right. What was your experience? I've always heard good things about West Bay in general. When buying the new house, did you have a lot of stuff that they had to come back and fix, and things that you weren't happy with, or what do you think about that?
I would say that I wouldn't say it was an excessive amount of stuff that they've came back. I'm still within the first year, so they've been out a handful of times. I'm sure they're going to have to come out a couple more times just for certain things that we just didn't anticipate, like wear and tear or breaking. But I wouldn't say it was excessive. I think that there was some things that I was frustrated with during the process from a quality standpoint. I don't know if that was due to the pure volume of, homes that they were building at the time, and they're just trying to, move through them pretty quickly. It just makes it tough when you sign a contract. You're basically saying that you're not allowed in the home, and you have, I want to say, like 7 or 8 appointments where you're permitted to be on the grounds, and you have to be with obviously a representative from the company.
Right.
So you're not able to get in there as much as you would like to actually hold some of the quality stuff accountable. So that's what I think was the most frustrating, because I remember as a kid when my parents were building, we would walk through these homes once a day.
I was just thinking that because my dad built a house 1992, maybe somewhere in there, and it was like a not a mansion or anything. It was a normal 1700 square foot house, brand new. And yeah, we were in there every day. I've got a little wood block that we kept from it as my house, and you can go see all the studs, all the electrical work, all the wiring. I've known a lot of people that went and wired their house themselves for surround sound or Cat 5 or whatever, internet connectivity, just to save money. Go if all the walls and ceilings are open, then, bring in some spools of cable and some ladders and go to work.
And it was the same experience. I think, for them, they could have pretty much done whatever they wanted. But with most of the builders down here, it's, insurance liability and having people in there. And let's be honest, they probably don't want you seeing every aspect of the build process.
I get it, because I'm sure that there's so many headaches that they can prevent, because you never know who is going to be in there doing what.
Correct.
And what are they making an issue of if it's not an issue? Most people don't see inside their walls ever, right? Most of you live in a house for 20 years, you might never have seen what's on the other side of that drywall. So you don't really know what you're looking at. So I can see that being a huge frustration point for them.
100%.
Constantly fighting people over that. I know that builders, I've always been a little apprehensive to build new, just because I'm a big fan of mature neighborhoods and ones that have kind of grown and settled into their own, and you kind of know which direction they've taken. I've seen some neighborhoods that get built up quick, or maybe it's the market, maybe it's location, who knows what it is, but they just kind of look like they've gone downhill quickly. And if you're one of the first ones in there, then everybody around you is kind of they're like your equity, right? Because
Correct.
it's up to them to keep everything up and moving. And I feel like that's such a risk to drop into a place and hope that it maintains and stays. I don't know if it's like that as much now as it was like back when, like in the early 2000s, but
No, it's 100% an issue.
yeah,
So
still a concern, right?
still a concern. Yeah, we're probably at 90% of the neighborhoods moved in. I said of 35 homes. And I would say like a good 7-8 families in there are concerned, because they'll see like blatant disregard for some of the rules that the HOA has put in place. People not maintaining their yards, their grass, having commercial equipment in the neighborhood. And it's a concern because it lowers your property value. Like
ultimately.
Our neighborhood that we left in Citruswood, it just had a good feel when you drove through.
That's a very nice neighborhood. And what are those houses? 90s, 2000s? When was that built?
They were all built right around 2005, 2006.
Yeah.
So some of them undergone more remodeling than the others, but for the most part, they're all very well maintained, and people take pride in their homes in there. So I feel like in this new neighborhood, the families are very alert and very aware and trying to make sure that the homes are representative of what these people paid on these new builds.
Yeah, that it gets that level of like seasoning, that comes along with an established neighborhood. You have trees in your neighborhood?
We do. That's another thing that's like actively being talked about. So there's oaks all planted in the front. We all know what happens with oaks after so many years and sidewalks.
So they're young oaks?
Young oaks, but they're growing quick. So everyone's already talking about what trees can be substituted to get something that's less invasive and keeps the neighborhood looking better longer. So we'll see what everyone's trying to make it a collective vote. I don't know if we'll get 100% cooperation.
Are you on the board?
I'm not. We haven't even established a board yet.
Yeah, they haven't turned it over.
They haven't completely turned it over.
Are you going to be on the board?
I'm not sure. I'm undecided. I would like to have, I guess I'd like to have some say in it just to make sure that we're, looking out for the values and making sure that, where everybody signed is the direction that these houses are going in.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think it's valuable, especially as a realtor. It's good to be in your community and know the neighbors and know the people. That's a great way to network, really.
100%.
You might not need to be the one with a gavel, but at least you can do something to help coordinate or organize.
And I don't think that people understand like the appearance and what goes through minds when you drive through a neighborhood. Like when you're a realtor and you actually drive through a neighborhood and you hear the feedback actively and what people are looking for, and then you drive through your own neighborhood and what some people may not think is a big deal. It is a big deal.
I see both sides of it. Who are you to tell me I can't park my electrician van in the driveway?
Correct.
This is my house. I paid God knows how much, $600,000 for this house. I'm going to park my means of income in my driveway. You tough luck, right? But at the same time, you don't want somebody pulling in, a semi-trailer and dropping off a 53-foot trailer somewhere in the neighborhood and letting that sit there for months or weeks at a time. And I always see both sides. My last house was, sometimes the HOA would get a little petty, and I think there's definitely a balance with HOAs. If you can keep things mostly good, when they start literally counting the number of bushes in your yard, that's pushing it a little bit. And but I like it when they keep up with paint jobs and they keep up with disgusting driveways. Like, clean it up. Let's make it look good. We're all here. We all pitched in, and we want to make it look nice.
That's the reason that you signed up for an HOA ultimately, because you could have went and picked another city with an acre and a half and no management and done whatever you wanted out there, but you chose to go into an HOA where there's an expectation of appearance.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it benefits everybody. The ones I see people's points. I've been on both sides of it. I think the biggest little complaint that I had, or that they had against me, was they could see our trash cans. And that was a big no-no for them. And this neighborhood wasn't like a neighborhood like Celebration in Orlando, Kissimmee. Everything is prim and proper and like looks like Disney. This neighborhood wasn't like that. We're talking about Walden Lake in Plant City. Yeah. And it was just, our trash cans were on the side of the house, around the side, like halfway down the house before you got to the fence in the backyard. And technically, you're supposed to have them obscured by bushes. So we had to plant a hedge and make a little nook for our trash cans to go in. Yeah. And we'd get pictures. I guess some lady on the HOA would either drive around or walk around and just snap pictures all the time. And all the neighbors had their own picture of either a dead bush or a trash can that's visible
Yeah.
or something. So, but it was a mature neighborhood. Those houses were built in like 99. And, we got the big, huge trees, oak trees. And, it's one of those neighborhoods that's not a square. It's got winding roads through it and cul-de-sacs and, everything's laid out with pie-shaped lots and things like that. So it's not one of these super HOAs on steroids.
Yeah.
So what were you doing when you bought your first house? What were you doing before you got in law enforcement?
So the house up in Buffalo, I was doing loss prevention then. So for retailers, just like I'm trying to think of the easiest way to describe it.
Like a Walmart cop.
It was
kind of.
It depends on what level you're at. So at first you start off as like catching people stealing in the stores, and then it becomes more of like a higher level,
like a strategy thing.
Yeah. There's obviously a theft prevention aspect of it, but it became more of like a logistical accountability for what shipments coming in,
procedures,
what chargeback procedures,
yeah,
exactly.
things like that. Yeah,
exactly.
I used to. My first couple jobs were retail, and I worked at Kmart and Eckerd Drugs.
Okay, so you're familiar with how it all works.
And we had loss prevention people we'd have secret shoppers, that would sneak around, and the employees wouldn't even know who they are. Yep. And then you'd have like the guy that came in and reviewed everything, and he had the whole district, so he would pop in once a month or something like that and bring in best practices and things to look out for. And they would target. We had a bunch of Disney VHS tape thieves at one point. And I'm dating myself, but we were back to, what was this, about 99, 2000. I graduated high school in 99. So I was right about that time. And there was this ring of women that would come in a big group, and they just kind of graze around the store, just kind of lazily walk around, and they'd wind up finding any of the Disney VHS tapes and popping them open and taking the cassette tape out of them.
Yep.
And that was like, of all things, like you're taking Disney tapes. I guess that's crazy. And like today's day and age, like everything is right here. Anything you want is on your computer. And back then, you had a collection of VHS tapes for your kids. And what they were doing is taking them to flea markets and selling them. And our loss prevention guy would come in and like give us pictures and tell us what to do and if we ever suspected that. And it was a riot.
So for like entry level, like just catching people shoplifting in the store, I worked for Abercrombie & Fitch, and then I went to JCPenney's as an area manager. So I had a couple stores there. And then my last job out in New Jersey, I was a regional. So then that's when you're only getting to these stores once every 6 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So it just completely changes. Like at the regional level, you have pretty much no interest in like the shoplifting piece of it. It's all about managing logistics and
like the bigger
tracking
picture of
shipments. Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. What do you think about these? Have you seen these videos of these ransacked Walmarts and the way Target looks like a jail now? There's some cities where they've every single thing in the aisles are locked behind glass. What are we going to do about that? What are they going to do about that?
I mean, these people are skilled. It's their job.
Yeah.
So if you don't have the means to prevent it, you're ultimately going to have to make the investments into this theft prevention equipment, because personnel is expensive.
Mm-hmm.
When you start to look at salaries, benefits, and keeping these people staffed in the stores at all times.
And the risk of it, too.
And the risk of employees getting hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And then what if they're on lunch and you get hit? So then you had all of this personnel in place, but they were on lunch.
Yeah.
So it's, I guess, if you have these theft prevention devices, you have a better shot, but obviously it's much more expensive to implement.
Well, that
store-wide
and I think that
jump.
I don't want to go there and shop. Like if I have to go track down an employee to unlock it's hard enough.
The optics are bad and it's inconvenient.
Yeah, really. Like it's hard enough to get a PlayStation game at Target, like in where we live. And I don't know if any of our Targets have had to go to those extremes. But a lot of these retailers are pulling out of bigger cities because they can't operate at a loss like that. They're just getting
100%.
overrun. And, it's bad enough to have to get like razor blades unlocked or something like that. And then I just feel like that's going to more and more push to online orders and Amazon and pickups and stuff like that. Because people go to Target to kind of hang out and shop and look and find what they like and what they want, And if everything is locked away and nothing is out for display, and I don't see anybody hanging out there anymore.
When I was doing that, I mean, they called it door hits. So if you worked at like a higher end store, we'll say, Dillard's or Nordstrom's or a store like that, that's going to have higher end jackets and shoes, boots near the doors, you would have 3 or 4 people come in, 2 of which would be distraction, 2 of which would be actually be removing the goods from the store. And then they take off in a car that's got a covered up tag, and you just lost between $3,000 and $5,000 on one hit, and they were in and out of your store in under 2 minutes.
It's crazy.
It's wild.
They're professionals about that stuff.
And then when you come back, if you're not at one of the stores, or one of the store managers calls you and you review it and you see how much was actually removed, it's hard to, you can't even be frustrated with the employees not being there, because they were in and out in a minute and a half.
Yeah. Well, what are you going to do?
So there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, it's crazy. So do you have a family history of law enforcement?
No family history of law enforcement.
Okay.
Nope.
So,
yeah, just the first one, and now my cousin's actually a cop up in a town just outside of where I grew up. So I guess she's the second family, but a lot of my friends up there are law enforcement. Yeah. Whether they're town cops or troopers or sheriffs up there. So
tell me the year again that you started at the sheriff's office.
Started in the academy in 2016 and then started on the street in 2017.
Okay. All right. What's that like? I mean, I'm asking you that because I'm not a law enforcement professional, but like that's a broad question, but I can only imagine what it's like. But what's your take on that job?
It's changed and evolved a lot. I think that it's becoming tougher and tougher for law enforcement out there to really make an impact. I think that a lot of the law enforcement is just being strapped down for what they can actually do. And I understand there's policies and procedures that you have to kind of keep people in to make sure that there's, not crazy lawsuits or, just rogue cops in general. But there's a lot going on. And obviously the economy that we have right now is, inflation's at one of the highest it's been in a while. So people have to get money and make money some other ways. And when you're law enforcement at night, you see the ways that they're doing it.
Yeah, you see the when it comes to choosing to break the law to feed your family, when it gets to that point, we're looking at some societal issues there. Yeah. It's not just the scumbag who found a easy way to make money or a quick way to make money. Now you're talking about they are trying to provide, and it's tough.
I think one of the, and I'm speaking for this area in general, I feel like the social media is giving these young kids who proclaim to be aspiring gang members the platform to spread their message and, I guess, beef with other gangs in the area, which ultimately causes excessive gun violence, where I don't think that when I first came down here that was as much of an issue. Like, and obviously there's gangs everywhere and they're all, active, but especially now with the social media and how they're sending their messages, it's just, I feel like it's constant. Yeah.
It's everything's so instant, it's just so, if you want to put the message out, it can go out in a heartbeat. And
Correct.
if you're all your homies or whatever are following you, then everybody sees it immediately. And now you're contained. I can just imagine like rolling up to a scene and your contained incident is now spread across the county, to everybody who was on
Snapchat, Instagram,
who was seeing that
here. Yeah.
And so now, you commit a crime and now you got to get away. But now, like, you commit a crime and all your friends are there to help you with it. That's crazy. You know, I've luckily never had a run-in like that. My biggest run-in have been traffic citations. So.
I feel like the traffic citations part of it it's dwindling. Like, you know, there's much bigger focus and there's other concerns that these deputies have out on the street, whether it's day shift or night shift.
What's up with those Ford trucks pulling people over?
Just like plain trucks.
Yeah, like completely plain.
There's a lot of, I mean, the vehicle diversity is, I mean, there's quite a few.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah,
I get out because I go up and down 60 every day, and some days you'll see like 4 or 5 different makes and models of vehicles, and not one indicator that it's an official vehicle. You know, it's just like it looks like any off the lot vehicle, and then you see a fully uniformed deputy getting out of it, and you're like, oh, okay.
I mean, from a law enforcement standpoint, there's a lot of great equipment that the county has here. There's without a doubt. You know, I tell people that ask about the job, I said, if you're going to be a cop in this area, like Hillsborough is where you would go. I mean, when it comes to the resources, the equipment, the vehicles, I mean, you have brand new deputies who haven't even completed their probation period getting brand new vehicles. I mean, I understand why it's happening. I mean, it's a draw to be a deputy and come out and get a brand new vehicle.
Sure, like a recruiting tool.
It is a recruitment tool.
And then the I don't know where the sheriff's office ranks in. I don't even. Do you know this? Like, where do they rank in Florida? I guess Miami-Dade's probably like the biggest sheriff's office. Is Hillsborough pretty far up there though?
I think that I want to say top 10 in the country.
Yeah, I've heard something
size.
like that before. Like, it's a very well-funded and large operation.
I mean, the tax base is definitely there when you look at all of the pools that they're pulling from. I mean, you have the port, the airport, the stadiums. I mean, there's quite a few different sources. But yeah, I would say that size-wise and funding and all the pieces are definitely there.
I saw something about the NYPD and their size, and it was like it rivaled many countries' armies and militaries just because of the sheer volume and like the airships and planes and helicopters and stuff that they have are like many countries don't even have that level of equipment.
Yes.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, there's definitely, like I said, there's no shortage of access and equipment. I mean, I think they have 2 or 3 helicopters, a plane, and it definitely helps, especially night shift, those guys out there.
Absolutely. When you need
from a
that
safety
stuff.
perspective and
call it in.
locating missing people, and it's helpful.
Are they using drones any? They doing that much?
There are deputies that are certified to use drones.
Yeah. That seems
I feel like the aviation gets used significantly more, but yeah, they're definitely used.
Yeah. That seems like it'd be a super helpful thing to have if you're looking for people. You know, I think I saw a video of somebody that was lost in the woods and they found him with a drone, like a FLIR drone. They were able to pinpoint it. I thought that was pretty awesome.
We've had several, I think, stories lately where they've had people lost. I think most recently up, I think Thonotosassa Lake up there. They located somebody in the water up there.
Wow.
It's like a deputy on a boat, and then the aviation helped out. So there's definitely a lot of big win stories.
Yeah, that's great. That's cool. That's a harrowing job to have. Thank you for doing it. You know, I appreciate our law enforcement, and I think that's I got some friends in the corrections and on the road, and I've known tons of people over the years that have done it. So.
Yeah, it's been a great experience. I think I've learned so much, and at times it's humbling. But the perspective that you get from doing that, it's incredible. I feel like, some of the agencies up north, you just get caught up in the ticket writing routine. But when you come down here, I mean, you're truly full service, and you see every type of call frequently. Your 12-hour shifts, and you're busy constantly. So it's a good perspective. I mean, you have some agencies up there that funding wise, they're riding 2-man, and that's not by choice of riding 2-man cars. It's because they don't have enough cars to leave the district for the day. So you'll have officers or deputies standing by in the districts writing reports because they're so short on cars that they can't make it out.
Wow.
So
that must make a huge difference being that like that. So how do you think the skill set that you've developed in law enforcement with dealing with all walks of life, from command and from, the people that you're stuffing in the back of a car, how do you think those interactions and experience and kind of the skill set that you've built up, how do you think that translates into real estate?
I think for real estate, it helped me personally at first is figuring out where I wanted to live, because you're out there patrolling these neighborhoods at night and, you have great perspective on, where's a great place to settle down. So I think that's probably the biggest. And then once you start getting into like the actual, I guess, job itself, like writing police reports, and you're almost annoyingly specific with the facts in a police report, where when you find yourself writing a real estate contract and doing addendums, I think it comes much easier, just because if it's not in the addendum, it didn't happen, and it's kind of the same with a police report. So
yeah, I
think that's been extremely beneficial. Just tying up all loose ends and making sure that everything's communicated.
I've heard some realtors complain about like paperwork in real estate, and I'm like, yes, it's not that bad. There's not that many documents you have to go through. And coming from that background, I mean, like
I've written more paper in one night as a deputy than I have like all paperwork combined for one transaction.
Yeah,
like all admin work combined.
Yeah,
so
I believe it. Now, when you're talking about paperwork, is there still a lot of handwritten, or is it mostly electronic?
We call it paper, but yeah, it's all computer based.
Yeah.
Yeah. So from the time you get there, everything that you're doing is on the computer. Certain calls require just clearance, and then some require, full reports.
Narrative, all that stuff that happens.
Narrative, interview, pictures, everything.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting.
So
yeah, so having a computer nearby you're not a stranger to that.
No. Yeah, it's constant.
Yeah, that's what it's like in the real estate world. I mean, when I was an agent back in 2004 to like 6, computers were a thing, but they weren't completely integrated yet. So paper contracts were still very, very common, and faxing and, still super common. And I did so many on the hoods and trunks of cars, outside in the driveway of a house that I showed. We just yank out a blank contract right there and write it up, fill it in, and offer in,
There was a project that I was working on this year, and I think out of all the deals I've done, there's only been like 1 or 2 that have wanted to do like signed paper contracts and addendums. And I just had one a couple months ago, and it's insane. It's like 2 or 3 days to get an addendum back when you DigiSign or whatever other
whatever e-sign thing,
whatever e-sign software that you have. I mean, it's instantaneous, and you can even, everybody gets a copy instantly. So it just helps speed things up, but it's painful. I hope that everyone's going to be integrating soon. And I think the issues with, not like a chain of custody, but just making sure that everything's done and time stamped.
Yeah. Fraud is a real thing.
Correct.
Like, we need to be careful about these things, and those, digital certificates and the timestamps and the tracking, that is very important. You don't want somebody, because you ever watched, what's that show? I think it's called Dirty Money. You ever see that?
I've seen it advertised, but I haven't actually watched it.
I think it's on Netflix. And there was one where this guy, this company, they were into mortgage fraud, and he had one of those X-ray things, like the light boards. He had one of those. He had like a whole drawer full of X-Acto knives and tape and copy machines, and he was just like a professional document forger. And he would get these things in. Their company was doing loans. He would take the documents, go home with them, slice them up, put in the numbers, do everything, recopy them, get it all in, and then put it back in the file. And he went to prison over it, but that's the one they caught. Who else was out there that they don't know about? And I think DocuSign and e-signs and stuff, I think that probably solved some problems, and it might have also created some problems, at the same time, kind of a twofold. But it's so much.
I mean, the paper trail you can't beat.
Yeah.
So when you see the timestamps and everything else, it's very cut and dry as to what time stuff was executed at.
And then you got IP logging about where it was and who did it, and like, well, no, this was signed by the computer that sent it. What's that about? Like, why didn't it go to another computer to be signed?
Then you have some realtors who use Sense are anti-technology, and there's always something wrong with the computer or the software, and 99.9% of the time it's user error.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember the times, luckily I didn't have to work in these times, but before you have to, if you're doing a loan for somebody, it requires a FedExed out loan disclosure package with stickies all over it and highlighted, sign here, put the little tab stickies on the side of it. And just the amount of money that it costs to print all that stuff off and then to FedEx it back and forth. And then who knows if something's wrong, and then you got to do it again and then you fix it and send it back in and out. And it's just, everybody has gotten used to this now mentality, which is great. I'm happy with that, but it's just more of the same. Like with the, so we were talking about earlier today, we were talking about social media and attention spans and just how everybody is bouncing from thing to thing to thing any minute of the day.
Have you monitored what like I get the alerts on my watch. I think they come on Sundays or your phone.
Yeah, mine comes on Sundays.
How much time you spent on average on your phone daily.
Yep.
And I remember a couple of years ago, it would be like 3 hours that I would be on my phone in a day. And lately it's been like 5.5 hours. So it just shows you increasingly how much more your phone is drawing you in.
Yeah. And from like a realtor's perspective, that's, safe to say about 70% of your work can be done like through the phone. Like when it comes to communicating, obviously, and talking,
I don't even know
emails
what
and
you
things
can
like that.
do for work without it.
Yeah.
When it comes to either making phone calls, text messages, social media, contracts, anything.
Yeah, it's all there. It might be a total pain. I would much rather have a computer to be able to handle those documents and everything, but it's workable. Like there's apps and there's the capabilities there, and people, they live on it. But what is that doing to people's attention, though? I feel like it's just grinding people down.
Nobody's present. Nobody's present anymore.
No. It's crazy. This is about the only time, these podcasts are about the only time where I can just kind of take this and put it away and just completely ignore it.
Yep.
And I was even having to text one of the girls here earlier. She needed something, and I still can't completely get away.
Yeah.
It's the life. So what is, so you talked about your, how your skills translate into real estate. We talked about paperwork. What do you think about people skills? And has this law enforcement career taught you how to, or maybe sharpened how to interface with people? Because I feel like a realtor needs to be almost a chameleon to be able to kind of interface with whoever, instead of one, this is all you're ever going to get from me type personality. What do you think about that?
I think it's exposed, I guess, outlooks into different cultures, and expectations, and obviously you're talking to people all day long as law enforcement, but I would say just giving you perspective on, people from different areas, and I don't know.
I've heard before that when you interact with paramedics, first responders, law enforcement, that in many, many, many cases, that's like some of the worst days of these people's lives, right?
Correct.
When you get to them and you have to do whatever it is, help, service, prevention, crime, whatever, that somebody's not having the best day of their lives, right?
Correct.
And that's got to be, I would imagine that there's some sort of, even if it's not a conscious empathy, it's more of, I'm sure that I feel like I would have empathy for that and just understand that, these people are not in their normal frame of mind at the moment. And, one could say that real estate might be a little similar to that. Nowhere near comparing it to that, but people are in a transition point in their lives. Unless they just buy a house every year and upgrade and flip and move, unless you're that kind of person. But, when you're talking about a family who is going to uproot from another state or county or across town or move up or whatever, those are really big decisions, especially with children.
Yeah.
Because you have children?
I don't.
No children? Okay. So I got a 10. Well, he's about to be 10. I'm aging him. He's 10 next week. 10 and 4. And those decisions are a lot heavier than they would be, that they used to be. Mm-hmm. When I was single or when we didn't have kids, whatever. I'd crisscross the county, move here. I'd buy a house over here, move here. Wasn't that big of a deal. But now, a lot of consideration goes into, well, what are my kids going to do? How am I doing? How am I making this decision for my kids? Are they going to have a good place to be in? Are they going to be in a good school zone? Are they going to have friends? Are they going to be close enough to activities and things like that? And I can, people relocating here or just whatever move, I think that you should never lose sight of the fact that they're in such a big life change, and it's a really big deal to drop $500,000 on a house or $200,000. It doesn't matter. No, whatever the price range is, it's a big deal. And, it sounds cliche, but a lot of people say that, this home purchase is going to be the biggest purchase that you ever make. And looking back, in my case, it is. I've never bought anything more expensive than my house, and being in the industry, it's just another day for me. I'm kind of running through. But even during that transition in my time, I feel those emotions. I feel those like, is this the right move? Am I getting into the right thing? And then in the middle of a contract, is the offer accepted? What are they saying? Have you heard back? Everybody on pins and needles at that time. So I guess you could draw some comparisons to that. Nowhere near as, life and death in a lot of cases, but people aren't their normal selves, I think, during this whole process.
Correct. I think the biggest challenges for me have been, working in an area that you live so close and you try and safeguard your social media, and you're not, very out there. Right. Whereas obviously in today's day and age, you want to be present with your social media, your marketing. Mm-hmm. So I think that forcing myself to get out there hasn't been nowhere near where it should be. And then the second piece of it is when you're out there as a deputy, you're busy all the time. Yeah. And I feel like some of these interactions with the public become so transactional. You almost become monotone because you're just trying to snap through it and get to the next one. Right. Where here in real estate, people are hiring you, like you as a person. They expect to have some personality, somebody that's interacting with them. Mm-hmm. So it's almost like you got to remind yourself, like setting change, and just make sure that you're yourself out there and you're not dealing, in a law enforcement capacity out there. Mm-hmm. So I think those are the two biggest things for me that I've tried to keep in mind.
Yeah. My wife, she was a NICU nurse for many years, and she just recently left to be home with the kids, but there was definitely a switch that flipped from the time that she got ready to go to work and put in her 12, 13-hour day to when she got home and flipped back into, mom and wife mode, because she's dealing literally with life and death situations to these little babies who have no...
Your wife was a NICU nurse?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So...
St. Joe's.
St. Joe's right up there in North Tampa? Mm-hmm. How long was she up there for?
Well, she just stopped about a year ago, and then before that, she was there for, 8, 10 years, somewhere in there.
So
around that time.
My wife was pregnant we found out last summer, and then 2 days after Christmas, I got a call when I was at work that we knew she was having pains over the weekend. She ended up going in and delivering our son at 23 weeks. Mm. So our son went into NICU at 23 weeks. He made it 2 days and passed. So I developed a whole new respect for...
Sorry to hear that.
The NICU nurses.
Yeah. They're angels, aren't they?
It's emotional. Yeah. It definitely is.
I wonder what month was that?
That was December of 22. Yeah, it was right before the new year.
So yeah, she was gone. She quit it. She left in May of.
I'm sure she knows the doctors that we
absolutely.
had.
I know she does.
They were absolutely incredible up there.
Yeah, they're really they're a special kind of nurse healthcare.
Like I mean, obviously, had exposure to hospitals, and you have to, go up there with certain people that you have throughout the shift.
Mm-hmm.
But seeing, I guess, that level of, buy-in, I'll call it, from the staff up there and how much they care was just incredible.
Yeah, they're all born with it. It's like that's who they are. So, yeah, she transitioned to home. Our kids are, well, my daughter, she's 4 and 3/4. She's about to be, when September is her birthday, she'll be 5. And my son, when COVID hit, he didn't go back. So he was on eternal spring break. So when he left, we kept him out for virtual for that following year. And then we transitioned to homeschool. So now my wife teaches both of them, full curriculum and everything. And I just felt like that was the right decision to get her away from her full-time job. And she worked a modified part-time. So she was there like 3 shifts per pay period. So she'd do 2 one week and 1 the next. And so she was like 6 shifts a month is what it averaged out to.
Yep.
But even still, that's a lot. And she was gone every weekend. She'd work Friday and Saturday or sometimes Saturday and Sunday. And we barely got to see each other because, she's not there, on the weekends. I work all week and then she comes home. So she transitioned to that, and it's a challenge now. It's a huge challenge, but they're doing great, and they're parts of all kinds of different groups. And like when I was a kid, homeschool was kind of like you weren't an outcast as a homeschooler, but everybody was like, oh, well, you're not going to know how to make friends. You're not going to have to be able to socialize or anything like that. And I think you couldn't be farther from the truth now, because these kids they're seeing friends and people and groups like 4 days a week.
Yep.
And they're totally in the middle of it. So I think that's it's a new for us still. She's not a veteran at it. She's only in this is her 2nd year of doing it. So it's a lot.
Oh, I'm sure.
But you really can't work and do that at the same time.
No.
There's just too much going on.
Especially not in NICU with the demanding hours.
Yeah. And that's not the kind of job that you can just hang up and walk away from. It's like, okay, I just went and did my thing and I went home, because, she's got families that she sees them every year. They have a, like a Christmas gathering, and the 2 nurses that were assigned are invited to come and, partake in the family and kind of see things. And it's,
I guess I didn't understand until I was obviously in the middle of it, was like when he was born, he had one-on-one care. Mm-hmm. So that nurse stands bedside for 12 hours.
Yeah, a primary.
So you want to know what happened over the last 12 hours. They can recite it,
mm-hmm.
Front to back.
Yeah.
And then, they're people. So when I say that is, after he passed and we walked out of the room, I wanted to see kind of like what the feeling was in the room after. And I made it look like I walked away, and then I walked back and looked in the room, and I saw the nurses hugging and crying, and that actually, it makes it feel 10 times better.
Mm-hmm.
That the passion that these people have for their career is unmatched.
Yeah, they're a special breed. I've met a lot of her friends, and they're all cut from the same cloth.
Yep.
Same thing. I'm sorry that happened to them. It's devastating.
It's been tough, and obviously it's new for us.
Yeah, that is fresh.
But like I said, between my wife and I don't think we've had more respect for a career than that one. That's a tough one.
Yeah. Well, I hate that you have to learn about it through that. It's terrible. So, all right, what's your wife do? She works.
She is a she's certified to be a financial advisor. She works for UBS. So she works on a large team down there. They do private wealth management. So she's very busy.
Is she remote work, or is that an office?
She's in the office.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's in the office, I would say 95% of the time. Like if there's a circumstance that allows her, if she has an appointment to be to or something, then she'll kind of work flexible. Remote for the morning. But for the most part, she's there.
Yeah. I really think that's the way the world's going to get back to.
It is.
It's going to take some medicine for people to swallow to get over it, but kind of need you in the office. You kind of need to be here doing work.
So I think that it goes both ways. So the team camaraderie that you get having everybody in the office, like you can't replicate that if you're working from home.
Yeah.
But I also think that maybe one day a week where you allow employees to catch up on like a Friday and not drive their long commutes definitely helps with, I guess, mental health.
Yeah, just life balance in general.
Just catching up for the week.
Having time to have appointments at your house or have somebody come through and fix something and you can be there to let them in while you work or whatever.
Exactly.
That's a huge, huge benefit. And again, it's one of these issues where I see both sides of it. I see the benefits to being at home and, I've always hear people say, well, if you leave me alone, I'll just do my work and I can do it at home as I can do it here. And yes, maybe you can, but when you spread that out over 1,000 people, somebody is taking advantage of something. And
correct.
The level of people that are there that are actually giving it their all the time, I wonder what that percentage really is.
I don't think you're learning either if you're at home. Mm-hmm. You're doing the same thing that you've done every day and checking the boxes, getting through your workload. I think if you're in the office, you're forced to not train, but you're bouncing ideas off of others, and I think you're taking more out of each day.
Yeah, and the old saying is it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Mm-hmm.
And networking is a huge part of any job. Doesn't matter what you do, any job. Skills, no skills. It's who you know, who can help me get here, or who can help me clear a path to go here. Or tell me about this, and how many places have you seen where a whole group of people, the company shuts down and then all the people wind up at a different company because they all knew each other and they all got each other in and, moved around. So that is a big thing. And I know I'm an introvert by nature. Like I don't love being out and socializing and happy hours and parties. I don't love it. I'll do it, but it's not my thing. And I could get very comfortable sitting at home, not ever talking to anybody, just kind of working on my computer and my phone and just kind of living in my own world. But I think it's, it's healthy to be having social interaction and like being with people.
Yeah, I think so. And when if you had two employees, you had one working from home and you had one working in the office, and then it came time for a promotion, and it doesn't matter what the field is. Mm-hmm. I feel like when the optics are there and you're seeing this person in the office working and you have this relationship professionally that where you're bouncing ideas off, you're naturally going to be more comfortable with
and
them.
Just the subconscious realization of seeing that person every day and picking up on their moods and just who they are as a person. It's so much harder to cultivate and sustain a relationship virtually. Like during the whole COVID lockdowns and everything, I heavily resisted virtual stuff just because that's where everybody immediately pivoted to. And so, we can't be in the office. Now we're on Zoom, and I didn't just want to be another face on a Zoom screen. So I shied away from that a lot. And it wasn't a good thing because a lot of that interaction was just missed. I just didn't have it. And, but now I think it's found a happy medium. Everybody is used to Zoom. Everybody is used to teleconferencing. So you can use it sparingly. Yep. Like when you need to use it, when it's effective, but you're not forcing people to a Zoom happy hour.
I prefer much more to meet people in person myself.
Yeah.
I feel like you get so much more of a read.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you get just more genuine responses. And I feel like the computer screen and the FaceTiming just becomes so professional. You just you just lose out on the personality.
There's something missing, and you just seem more fake when you're trying to cultivate it. You're trying to make something out of it. It just seems like you're trying too hard.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree.
Yeah. When you decided to become a licensed agent, what made you do that? Because you mentioned you had your license in Buffalo, right? Mm-hmm. And then is it because you bought a house? Is it because of that, or is it because you saw something else there?
I think I've had a lot of interest in it, just in total. Like, I love identifying the house or building the house, and obviously the designing it, the decorating it, everything that goes along with it is something that I enjoy. I think that, I haven't stayed in a home longer than I think 2.5 years at this point. So that's something that I think was hard for my wife to adjust to at first. Mm-hmm. And then I think that now I catch her looking at houses, I think, more than I do, which has been an adjustment.
Did you move a lot as a kid, or were you pretty planted?
At first, my parents did. The house that I was born into, we lived for a few years. Then we moved 2 lots down. They built another home that was bigger. We lived there. Then they built another home in a development. They couldn't get what they wanted for the house that we were living in, so they decided to forego on the one that they built. So the builder sold that one. We stayed in the home that we were at for a couple of years longer. And then they moved one town over and built another home, and they've been in that home for a while now. Okay. But in between, while being steadily in the home in Buffalo, they've also bought and sold a few properties in Florida here. So I wouldn't say that they've completely, stopped buying and selling properties. It's continued, but it's just been down here.
So you weren't born into a house and lived there till you moved out. You had some
Correct.
moves.
Yeah, we've had some moves.
Yeah.
All within 15 minutes of each other,
right.
But there's been, multiple different houses.
Okay. So you decided to get licensed. You knew law enforcement was a sure thing, because it's solid retirement career, like the long play. And so you came to Florida, started keeping your real estate license, started doing stuff here. So where do you see yourself? And, this is the old job interview question. Like, where do you see yourself in 5 years, son? Like, what do you think about that?
I think over the next couple of years, I think next year, my wife and I talked about starting to either buy investment properties or start, if the market's right, maybe doing a couple flips and getting our feet wet with that. Mm-hmm. I think we're done touching our personal property for now. I think we're going to settle here for a couple of years just because we do really enjoy it. But I think that designing a couple other homes and, maybe some easier flips we'll start with and go from there. As far as real estate goes, I definitely want to grow as an agent and get into a few other aspects that come along with that. I know some companies are starting to offer services where, if a realtor comes through a home and they see that it needs X, Y, and Z, they'll offer the money up front to make those changes, and then they'll recoup that investment on the back end once the home sells, just to get a higher sale price. That's stuff that I definitely want to start getting into.
It's like an HGTV thing.
It is, and it's actually, obviously on HGTV is what, I guess, put it out there, but it's happening locally a lot more than people think. Mm-hmm. And as a realtor, and I'm sure others would agree, there's certain things that are just going to make a deal fall apart. And I think that some of those things, if we had more exposure, to market these solutions, maybe those deals wouldn't fall apart. Mm-hmm. I think that, I'm sure you see it just in the mortgage industry, is the hot topic, especially in Florida, has just been these roofs. I think that's been, I would say, out of deals that have fallen apart, 90% of them have been because of the roof, and just unable to come to terms, unable to get insurance on the home past a 4-point.
Nobody wants to give up a $20,000 roof.
Correct.
When they're when they're making 40, they don't want to lose 20 when they're trying to make that work. And that's a tough situation for a seller because their roof's not leaking. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not, it's got life left in it. But then your insurance company's coming along and saying, oh, well, not going to give you policy because their roof's too old.
Yep.
And now they have almost a defective product that they're trying to sell. You know, their house is black marked there.
I think that one of the most common situations, just for ease of the story, is, you know, let's say you have a mom and dad pass away and the home is obviously inherited by the children and they just want to unload it.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to, maybe they don't have the means to, or they just don't want to, you know, make the changes to where the property is marketable for many different loan products. But if you have the availability where you have a realtor that's going to come in, or, you know, a company that's a third party that's going to finance the roof up front for you and then require payment on the back end, now you've just opened up your offer pool to how many more people.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're eligible for the first time home buyers, the vets, you know, everybody that before you couldn't even touch that because the roof was in such poor condition.
It's like that's flirting with almost like a renovation loan product. Like the renovation loans are tough. Like there's a lot of hoops to jump through with renovation, and a lot of parties and a lot of stuff that's really outside of your control. But something like that, where it's more of a seller side orchestrated deal, then that could work. And now my mind immediately goes to the money. Like you have to find a roofer that would first outlay that money and pay their people and their materials and all that stuff. And obviously they're putting a work order on the house and a lien and everything. So they're going to secure their stuff. But what's your outlook on that? Like how do you get a contractor to come around to that?
You're not going to. So that would be something that I would finance myself.
Mm-hmm.
And there's realtors that are doing it now, and there's definitely companies that are doing it. So you're basically having an agreement drawn up between the seller and, obviously, if it was me doing it, the realtor, that you're recovering X amount of funds plus a percentage, because that home is going to sell for a higher purchase price due to those improvements. But yeah, you're not going to get a builder that's going to front the labor and supplies for that.
Right. Unless you're the builder.
Correct.
Could also happen too. That could be a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I mean, you can take it much further. I mean, bathroom, kitchen remodels, but I'm just talking,
right.
Like just let's pass a 4-point.
Right. The simple things.
And make this house, eligible for others. Because when you think about it, I'm sure you've had first-time home buyers where, they can qualify for a home, but they're not paying out of pocket for $20,000, $30,000 roof.
Right.
It's just not going to happen.
Not even a first-time home buyer. I mean, just who else? There's not a lot of people out there who are willing to bring their down payment and their closing costs and their cost of moving and whatever, and then have to buy a new air conditioner or a new AC or whatever, a new electrical panel, like whatever the multi-$1,000 item is, because there's not a whole lot of money left over after. And now you're still moving again, you're still painting, you're still doing like maybe new floor, like you got a budget for this other stuff that's almost like a requirement. And then those big ticket items are.
Yeah, when we moved into the house on Citruswood, it needed a roof, air conditioning, pool heater. I mean, it was
cha-ching,
yeah,
cha-ching.
the list was long.
Yeah.
So I mean, these people were just trying to squeeze as much time out as possible.
Yeah.
But obviously, when we sold it, the buyers obviously saw the value in all these high ticket items
stuff
are done. Yeah.
And it's always been tough to look at appraisals. I want to get an appraiser on this show and just grill them about all the questions that we've ever come up with over the years. And, tell me this, why? Well, and I think, appraisers, there's such a weight in their opinion, and it's
supposed to be black and white, but
it's an art. It's not a science. And there's too much weight on that opinion, and 10 different appraisers can give you 10 different answers. And as black and white and as in the box and in or outside of the box that this whole world is in, with real estate and financing and all that stuff, that's the one thing that's like an opinion. It's an opinion-based thing. Like underwriters don't have opinions. You do your best to stay away from an opinionated underwriter. You want to see, like, what does the guideline say? Does it fit or not? And it's not like that with appraisals. And I've seen so many times where, a new roof isn't bringing any value at all because they say, well, every house has to have a roof, just like every car has to have tires. And on a car lot, if you're buying a car with 1,000 miles on the tires versus a car with 60,000 miles on it, not really doing a whole lot to the value of the car. And that's the best explanation I've ever heard about it. But it's when you're throwing around these big ticket items, roofs depends on the house, obviously, and the roof, but 20,000 easy for a roof. And if you're getting into the bigger places, it's $100,000. And how do you justify not having a higher price after you dropped in $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 on a house and you're still at the same list price as you were at when you got started?
I think it almost comes into, like, you'll have a lot of people think that they're going to represent themselves instead of having an agent. And that's on the listing side and then on the buying side. So, listing people think they're going to do it for sell by owner. And then the buyers think that they're just going to go to the listing agent every time. But they don't understand that obviously they're going to be loyal to the sellers. Like, that's where their loyalty lies. So once you start looking at that and then you start taking roofs into consideration, the listing agent, if you're a buyer, is not going to tell you that, hey, you could have a higher insurance premium because the roof is X years old and it's past its point that's acceptable for insurance companies, and it's obviously all different. And then you get what your insurance estimate's going to be, and you're shell shocked. Yeah. Where if you had a buyer's agent, you would already be prepared, saying, hey, anything past,
have a strategy for that.
Strategy. 12, if it's past 12 or 15 years, be prepared, because the insurance company is going to have a hefty bill for you.
Yeah, they're going to come after you hard and wind up dropping you and putting you in all kinds of issues.
Yep.
So are you on a team now?
I am on a team.
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
So the team has been great. I feel like with just bouncing ideas off and people looking out for you, it's definitely helped out. Especially when, life happens and you need somebody to stand in for you, or, like I said, just anything that comes up.
Yeah.
I've had, obviously Tara Cabot have been on the team, and Cabot's been a great mentor. I think the thing about Cabot that is the most helpful is he'll answer your question and then also give you the real world application in a 2-minute brief. And I definitely appreciate that, because it just gives you the perspective on it. He's been a great resource for reaching out, and pretty much just willing to help on any situation that comes up.
And I think that's vitally important for any new agent, is to be able to have somebody that is trusted and experienced, and they're going to steer you the right way. They're not going to give you bad information or ignore you or tell you to figure it out on your own.
I think that being a new agent and doing your first couple of deals is like the margin for error is obviously higher, but when you have somebody that's kind of like double checking or saying, hey, here's some things to think about, it helps keep any issues from coming up. And I've been fortunate. I haven't had anything that I've had to deal with. Yeah. That's been, anything super difficult. Yeah. That couldn't have been fixed.
Couldn't have been fixed. Yeah. Most everything can be fixed. The fix might be a cancellation or, I've
been fortunate enough. I haven't even had anything like that. It's just been like small things that, we're able to work around. Yeah. So it's been good.
Well, they say that no deal ever is crystal clear smooth. It's there's always something somewhere that's a problem. So I get that. We're going to move into headlines.
Perfect.
And I'm going to change it up today. I'm going to ask you, what should I Google and talk about headlines? Tell me what I should type. Obviously, we try to keep this housing related.
Yeah, so. Let's Google forecasted housing market for 2023-2024. Florida specifically, if I didn't add that.
All right, so I'm going to open that one. I'm just opening a few articles here because a lot of times they're junk. Hey, look, there's Forbes. They're pretty trustworthy, right? Here's Fortune. So let's try them, see what they have to say. So Norada Real Estate Investments Who is this? This is not a news site. This is something. It's like a real estate blog. Let's see what they have to say. Florida housing markets continue to face challenges by rising mortgage rates and a decline in both single-family and townhome condo closed sales. Despite the challenges, it's seen a significant increase in end-of-month inventory levels for both categories. Still short of pre-pandemic levels, but in this article, we're going to take a closer look at trends and see what they might mean for the Florida housing market. So, according to a recent report by the Florida Realtors, single-family home sales in January 23 were down 32.5% compared to January 22, which is to be expected because that's when rates were still great and the boom was still happening. People were still influxing like crazy, and that was the tail end of that. So we're going to see a huge decline in activity. Activity does not equal value, right? So these values are holding, and they're even increasing a little bit. We were looking at some articles last week, and they were up a couple percentage points year over year, and that's normal. The 15, 20, 30% a year is totally not normal. That's a fluke, and that's a boom. And I don't even know that you could call it a bubble just yet, because bubble's got to pop, right? And we're not popping at the moment. So do we know the future? I don't have a crystal ball, but we all want it to hold, and I'm okay with it being slow. That's okay with me. 2, 3, 4, 5%.
You can't be full steam. I mean, you and I both know that if the interest rates went down to 2.5 or 3%, we would be back to 40, 50,000 over asking tomorrow if that happened.
Yeah.
And I know that, a year and a half ago, there was a lot of people that we were monitoring the market for, and they're just hesitant to pull the trigger, but they've already outgrown their homes. So you have them in your queue, and you're actively sending them, homes that are hitting the market. So when you have those people that still need to get into homes because the market took off and they're just kind of sitting there waiting, that's one buffer. And then the other thing with Florida, it's a secondary home market. So you still have those people that are coming into town, a lot of cash buyers that are, I guess, lower financing percentages, in conjunction with those people that have just outgrown their home simply. I think that it's a good buffer.
That I had a thought earlier that, I was looking for this data, and I want to find it. I'll find it somewhere, but I read somewhere that about 33% of homes owned in Florida are owned outright with no financing on it. So there's this narrative or this, negative idea that, I can't get a listing because people don't want to give up their 2.5% interest rate or their 3% interest rate. They don't want to give it up and go and buy a house for 7%. But there's so many listings out there. There's so many houses out there that don't have a mortgage on them that people still need to move. They want to move. They want to change. They want to upsize, downsize, whatever. And so I think, for realtors, they should, if they're listening, they have that idea, just get rid of that idea.
I mean, life events happen.
Yeah.
People are going to naturally have to buy and sell homes. I think that's more of an excuse than anything.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the other things, maybe a couple generations earlier, was that mortgages are bad. Mortgages aren't bad. I mean, if you have a low interest rate, and you have your money making a higher percentage, then it actually makes sense to have a mortgage, because your money's making more money than you're actually paying on your mortgage, if that makes sense.
It's like and that's an appreciating asset, because you're hopefully your appreciation's outpacing your interest rate. But I look at it the same way as a vehicle. If you can get 2% or 1.5% on an auto loan, why not?
Yeah.
Why dump all that money into? And if you're obviously if you're responsible and paying it and everything, but why come off of your money? Let it sit somewhere. Put it to work for you. Put it in an investment. Use it to do something else instead of dropping $50,000, $60,000 on a vehicle that you own outright with no car payment. That's great, but if you can borrow it for a few $1,000s over the life of the loan, why not?
There's very wealthy people that carry mortgages.
Oh yeah,
and I feel like that's what is a misunderstanding. Is like a sign of wealth is having your house paid off. It's like that's not a sign of wealth. I mean, congratulations on not owing anything.
Depends on your point in life too.
Correct.
If you're done and you don't want any responsibilities, you don't want to make it tough for anybody that you're leaving things to, sure, right?
Yeah.
But why not use that money for something else?
Yeah, I'm not saying, let's be financially responsible and not pay our mortgage,
No,
but
totally.
let's use the liquid assets that we have,
Mm-hmm.
I guess, more intelligently than just completely trying to pay off a house. If you can, I guess, turn those funds over to a financial advising team that's going to manage the money well.
Leverage. That's all. That's exactly what leverage is. So this article goes on to talk about the real estate market in Florida has seen unprecedented price rises during the last few years as a result of lack of supply and high demand. They talk about over the last decade, Florida's real estate has risen 282%, which equates to an annual home appreciation of 6.14%. 6 is a very palatable number. That's something that you can bank on and think about and be reality. It's far cry from 30%, but 6% is healthy, according to data collected by Neighborhood Scout. Florida has been one of the finest long-term real estate investments in the United States over the past decade. So what's it say about, here's Tampa. Within Tampa, has one of the most overpriced housing markets in the nation, according to new research from Florida Atlantic University. I read this study last week, or maybe 2 weeks ago, and I think they were saying here the way their study came out is they said that according to trends, I'm thinking back to this report because it's not exactly in front of me, but they said that according to trends, the housing data in Tampa says that our median house price should be like $260, and currently it's like $415 or something like that.
Yep. And
I think it was Elena that was here, and I was like, "When's the last time you saw a median sales price of $250 in the Tampa area?" You can't find it, and they're very hard to find. And my heart goes out to these people that are trying to buy their house for the first time because it's tough. It really is. We can't ignore that fact that
you
it's
can't
hard.
get a townhome right now. That's, I guess updated for what your average person considers for under 250 right now.
Right.
Like you're seeing the townhomes, at 300.
Mm-hmm.
So
And you've gotta get pretty far out there in the outskirts.
You have to get to the outskirts
and start
to see those
finding
prices.
those deals. But
if you're going to be in the city, forget about it.
But I guess the closest thing we can compare to is California, right? Because California has been like this for decades, 20 years, 30, 40 years of super overvalued. Overvalued is not the right word because it is what it is.
There's people standing in line to pay
paying for it. Yeah. So it's overvalued. It's definitely not the right word, but it's it's tough. What else do we have here? So the Tampa metro area is projected to see no growth in home values by March 31st, 23, which just happened. But this is expected to change by May 31st, 23, with a projected decrease of 0.3%. By the end of month on February 24, home values are expected to increase by 2.3%. So those are small numbers, but both of those numbers are flat to me. Like 2% here, 3% here, that's pretty flat. That's a pretty stable incline or decline. So I would be okay with that.
Everyone thinks there's going to be a big bubble that bursts, and I think it's just going to continue to stay flat.
Well, I try to stay as an impartial observer on that sometimes, because obviously as a real estate agent or an industry professional, we are here to sell people houses and help them to homeownership, upgrade, downgrade, everywhere in between. So I always try to take an objective approach on that and say, it's my job to say that it's not going to crash, but I did live through the 2008 crash, and I was in this business all the way from 2000 on. So I saw it and I lived through it. And I've always said it 1,000 times, that if anything were to happen again, it's not going to be the same set of circumstances that happened the first time. And I think that the generations who are talking about those things, which really is anybody who was alive during that period of time and old enough to understand what happened, that just feels like a natural progression. Like, though this is supposed to happen because it happened you know, in 2008. So it's going to happen again. But when you look at historical charts and you look at, you know, the market in the past, that really was a once in a lifetime meltdown.
Yeah.
You know, and then you go back to the tech meltdown, the tech bubble in the 90s. And then you got the whole savings and loan thing that was before that, and Enron, and like all these big mega financial disasters. But everybody's houses have typically been protected and okay, other than 2008 when the bottom fell out and every other person had a foreclosure or a short sale on their credit.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that's going to happen is let's say there is a hard decline, you're going to start to see it in other markets around the country before you actually see it or feel it in Florida. So you're going to get a warning of the wave, essentially. When the population is increasing as much as it is down here, and being a secondary home market, you're going to start to see it in the Northeast, where you're starting to see a lot of evacuations to other areas. You're going to get a testing of it there first.
I've seen some mortgage forecasts coming out, and they're optimistic. Do they also have a crystal ball? No, they don't. Nobody saw those 2% rates coming when it happened, but nobody had ever seen COVID happening either. So who are we to judge? But some of these articles that I've seen have put us back in the low to mid 4s within the next 12 months. So if that can hold, that would be awesome. Yeah. You know, just to loosen the necktie, you know, around the chokehold that they have on people, because it's tough, you know, but it is what it is. You can always refinance.
Yes.
You know, it's that the big saying that has been going around for the last few months is, you know, date the rate and marry the house. You know, the rate's temporary, but the house is forever. So that's sound advice, you know.
You tell me, like, think about it. If rates do start to come back down again, you see the applications start immediately. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then what happens? The competition starts immediately.
It goes over again.
So the house that you thought you were going to get because you were looking at the market today, in 3 months, if you see a decent drop, you're not even in the competition for that. You're settling for, I'm sure, a nice house still, but nothing what you had envisioned, you know.
I also, another point in this is, you know, okay, you get a 7% interest rate and you get whatever your payment's going to be. If they fall, you refinance. What if they keep going up? What if they go to 12? Mm-hmm. You're going to be happy that you have a 7 at that time. Yeah. And it's just it's the same as a stock market. You can't try to time the market. You can't try to, you know, manipulate it, because it doesn't work like that. You know, you just, especially with housing. I mean, stocks are one thing because you can get in and out so fast, but when you're uprooting your family and selling a house and buying a house, those are long arcing decisions, you know, 30 days at least, probably even more than that, to decide what you're getting into.
Florida's one of those places where you want to have skin in the game. You don't want to be on the outside renting, trying to get your hand in there. I mean, look what happened in 2020. I mean, you gained like massive double-digit percentage gains on your home, you know, just because of a pandemic that hit. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, if you didn't have a home and you were on the outside renting at that point, I mean, you lost out on a massive amount of money. I mean, think about, for your average household, how long it takes to save, we'll say $80,000, $100,000, $120,000. Yeah. And just by not owning a home because of fear of interest rates, or you just don't think it's the right time, you're 6 months out, I mean, you just lost out massively. Mm-hmm. So, and
we can't promise that that's going to happen again, you know, because those 20%, 30% appreciation years are rare, and they're a gift when they happen. But that makes me think about, you know, what are we going to do about Gen Z? How are we going to help those guys? Because all of them are salty about employment and income and housing prices and rent prices. Yep. What's going to happen there? What are you? What generation are you? You millennial?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm an elder millennial. I'm one of the first. I'm 81.
Okay. So I'm 89.
Okay. So you're firmly planted. Yeah. I don't know when it cuts off.
I think just a few years after 89, and then it switches.
Sometimes in the 90s. yeah, so I get feedback a lot from videos and content and stuff that we put out there, and I feel bad for them. It's like, yeah, well, because we do a lot of things like, how much do you need to earn to purchase a $400,000 house? And we'll show you the breakdown. And that's a pretty substantial income. It's not as bad when you got two people,
Correct.
but that's more traditional, two people working together to buy a house and plant roots and take that on. So that's a question I've been asking myself is what do we do with those guys? Because they're here, like they're of age and they're starting their earning years and they're starting to get into the markets and they're bitter about a lot of it.
But I feel like there's no information around it. Like people complain about it, but they don't seek out answers or, take any of the next steps. Like, for example, there's countless people that I've spoke with that, they'll talk about, a purchase price or, I just don't think that I can do that yet. It's like, well, have you talked to a lender and find out what your debt to income is or what your credit score needs to be at?
Some goals need to be in the next 5 years, 2 years to get here.
And that's one of the things is like you only hear from people 2 weeks before they're ready to pull the trigger or their dream house just hit the market yesterday and what do I need to do? Which all those situations you're more than willing to help somebody. Mm-hmm. But the amount of stress that they're instantly put under at that time can easily be avoided just by making contact with, a friend that's a realtor, or a mortgage lender, and having a strategy and a checklist of things that they need to get done before the actual process begins. Yeah. I feel like from a buying standpoint and even a listing standpoint, if you were able to talk to these people and give them, advice 6 months out, that would be more than beneficial, for what they need to be doing, maybe changes they can make to the house to make it more appealing, if that's something that they're interested in doing. And then also gives buyers the perspective of what can I afford and what are my expectations. Mm-hmm. And then from a lending standpoint, if you have, let's say somebody a couple years out of college, they got themselves in credit card debt, you can walk them through what changes need to be made in order for them to afford, X purchase price. Yeah.
And the old advice holds true. I remember when I turned 18, 19, whatever, I heard from multiple people, stay away from the credit cards. Don't get a credit card. Just stay away. You don't need one. Don't get one. And of course, at that time, you can't tell me nothing, at that age. So here comes the platinum card, here comes the $8,000 balance and a bunch of junk that never amounted to anything that I'm paying interest on. And
so how many people would you say that you get where you're basically counseling them on credit repairs before you can get them to a point where they're ready to buy?
If I was to put a percentage on it, maybe 20%. 20% of the people who kind of come through.
You're counseling them saying X, Y, and Z needs to happen with your credit in order for you to come back and buy a home.
Yeah, because if we get something in, then we can't give them an approval. We'll give them a solution to say, pay this off, pay this off, pay this off. This is going to open you up for this, and your $100,000 approval is going to jump to $350,000 because you freed up all of this, overhead.
How many people walk through the door thinking they can afford, a purchase price that was something that they thought affordable, and then you look at their finances and it's just not even doable?
A smaller percentage. Okay. It's not that great. I've got a colleague in California that he must have, that seems like all he does is deal with the people who make $70,000 a year and they want to go buy a $1.4 million house in Palo Alto or something like that, and it's like, and he just hits them with the numbers, like this is.
We can thank HGTV for that.
Yeah, and they're just on another planet, But thankfully, we don't really see too much of that. That's not a huge part of it. And I've always found that, and I don't even, I kind of feel bad saying this, but I surely shouldn't. Whatever. It's the people who have habitual behavioral credit issues. No amount of credit repair is going to fix what they've fixed their behavior. They might fix a mistake or fix a mishap, something like that. But in my experience, and I'm sure that other people agree, that you come to us with a 480 credit score. It's not a mishap that it got to that point, right? You didn't miss a payment, or you didn't misreport a payment, or forget to pay off a credit card or something like that. It's a habitual offender.
Yep.
Over and over and over and over and over. And credit repair there's a lot to it. It's not just letter writing and get this taken off my report. It's not that simple. Yep. And the credit repair people don't have magic wands that they just fix stuff with. So usually money is the one that solves it. I saw a meme. I want to find it again. It said, credit repair tip, pay them people. That's all there is to it. Pay them and wait. And I find that, we're more than happy to always consult people and say, this is your situation. This is what you need to do. And this is how you get out of this problem. But in order to get there, if there's a game, you got to play the game. You got to pay it on time. You got to keep your credit score right. You got to keep your balances down. You got to take care of it, pay things when they're supposed to be. Don't let things slip through, and you'll be okay.
The best example I think I can give is, like when you walk into a furniture store and everyone's crowding the door, like, oh, can I help you? Can I help you?
Yep.
I feel like a lot of people out there that are looking for homes are afraid to approach realtors because they feel like they're going to get that, well, what can I help you with?
Hounded. Right.
Exactly. It's like, for me, like the most important thing is obviously I want somebody to have a good experience, and 2 is my reputation. Mm-hmm. So the last thing that I'm going to do is crowd somebody or try and sell them a house they don't need.
Yeah.
It's more so like just being there to educate them on what the market looks like, the homes that they're looking for in specific areas. And if I could get them set up on a search 4 months out and they can start to manage their own expectations, I think that it would do them, far more good. And that's not something like, oh, I don't want to waste your time. Well, you're not wasting my time. These are automatic searches that take me, 5 minutes to set up.
Right.
And text me or call me with any questions that you have.
Now, how bad would you feel if if you're the type of realtor who fleeces somebody into something, minimizes problems, forces them to sign, talks them into staying when they're having second thoughts, and you got to feel like a slime ball after
I just won't do it.
I know.
I just blatantly tell people I don't need this sale.
Yeah.
I mean, I want.
Your reputation's more important to
Correct.
you than you don't want somebody being like, oh, me and Ryan made me buy that house. I wish I would have never called him because now we're stuck in this place.
Yep.
You have to be an advocate, and
I find myself actually pointing out all of the issues just to be as transparent as possible, because I just don't want to hear in 2 months that somebody had, a house where they thought everything was good and it wasn't, or just a bad experience in general.
I warn people on all kinds of stuff all the time, just off of personal experience. Like, am I required to tell them these things? Do the compliance gods make me disclose this and say this? No, they don't. But I'm the same. Like, I want you to know about what a tax reassessment is going to do to your tax bill after you build this house, or after you buy this house that somebody owned for the last 30 years. And you inherit their $400 tax bill, and you bought the house for $350, and now your taxes jump to $4,500 a year. Your payment's going to swing on that, and we're not. They're not paying that money now. They're paying it 18 months or whenever it all kicks in and filters down to their payment. So, I want people to understand that, and I think I've had multiple agents here on this podcast tell me the same thing. I look for the deficiencies. As a homeowner, I'll go in, I'll look for the things that would bother me, or that I know that are going to be expensive to fix, and quality issues and things like that, because I want, you want your clients to have a positive experience and to be happy for years to come.
Yeah.
So,
and it's also hard. I mean, like, my expectations of walking in a house, I know I have high expectations. But it's like some things, you have to separate yourself and be like, somebody might enjoy that or like that feature about the house. And I just try and limit it to, structural and functional call outs that, are going to potentially, like you said, cost them money in the long term.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think do you have any, I always try to get advice from the agents that join me here, because I want to know, what would you tell someone maybe in your situation that you're a starting out situation when you were younger, somebody looking to jump in, stop renting, move away from home, what kind of advice would you give a person like that? Coming out of college, out of trade school, out of high school with a job, whatever, planting their feet, trying to get in Florida where we are now. What do you tell those people?
I would say priority one would just be you have to get into a home. I mean, the real estate here like has the potential to grow like we've seen it over recent years, and it's only going to grow more. I mean, the market's not going to stay down forever. I feel like that's the most important thing, is just staying laser focused on your finances. And I know renting is expensive. So the sooner that you can get out of there and start to actually, accumulate some equity in the home is going to be the most beneficial. And obviously, just putting yourselves in the right situation, the right jobs, just being financially responsible, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, I think in this day and age, it's easy to just constantly buy and spend.
Mm-hmm.
If you're making the money, then you can do that. But just making sure that you have a home at the end of the day before you start making all of these other purchases.
Yeah. That advice echoes others that have been here. It's financial picture, financial health, and yes, you don't have $1 million stock portfolio, but you also, maybe you don't have $4,000 a month in credit card debt either.
Yeah.
So, those are all very big needle movers when it comes to.
I mean, I feel like when you
house.
look at big picture, you look at somebody's like overall financial picture, somebody that maybe bought a home earlier in their life are maybe in a better financial situation than if you're coming in, later after renting for multiple years.
Mm-hmm.
You're just able to flip the equity. You know what I mean? I mean, not everybody wants to move like I have every 3 years,
Right.
but I mean, there's money to be made in homeownership.
It gives you so much opportunity, so many options. Like if maybe you bought a starter home and maybe you paid it off. Who knows? Maybe you gained $200,000 in equity, and maybe you don't want to move somewhere, but maybe you want to use that money to maybe you want to sell it and go live in a camper somewhere.
Yeah.
But if you hadn't owned that house, you wouldn't have that money.
Correct.
Same strategy. Yeah. All right.
And I feel like the other part of it is like it doesn't have to be the HGTV house. You just need to get a house, maintain it, make some improvements, and just start to grow.
Mm-hmm.
Because nothing's going to be, a 5,000 square foot home.
Yeah.
With the sprawling waterfront dock, and it's unrealistic. You have to start somewhere.
I'm of the opinion that 5,000, 6,000 square foot homes are not for everyone, just because of the amount of maintenance.
They're not for a lot of people.
And cleaning and everything that you have to do to put into a place like that. It's not even worth it, unless you've got so much money where you've got a staff and you've got services to take care of everything. And hey, great, more power to you. But 1,500 square feet is absolutely doable for a family. 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom house, 2-bathroom, absolutely doable. You had no problems in something like that. That's perfect. You got anything that you would tell to new deputies, young deputies on the force that are starting out,
I mean, I know what I did, so I guess I can talk about that.
And I guess my question really relates more to almost a repeat of the question I just asked you. Not necessarily in their law enforcement career, but how do they get ahead financially?
Some of them have already figured it out, and some of them haven't.
Mm-hmm.
The ones that have figured it out are financially responsible. They're working off duty that, they're able to work. Those are duties outside of their patrol assignments or whatever function that they work at the sheriff's office that they can make additional income. Because if you're working off duty, you're not spending money.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not working off duty, you're out on the weekend spending everything. I know that as I was buying homes initially, before I started doing real estate, I was working off duty to supplement the income that I was making. So that definitely helped.
Yeah. I think there's a little bit of a stigma that follows around some law enforcement professionals that, and first responders in general, firefighters. I've seen it firsthand and I've heard about it before, but a lot of them, they get a good job, well paid, they get overtime, whatever. And then all of that turns into toys, and there's side-by-sides and ATVs and jet skis and boats and boat trailers and toy haulers and, and then their debts just go to the ceiling, and now they are on a treadmill, hamster wheel, and they're completely trapped. And if they make $1 less a month, they're going to implode.
Yeah. Then the deck falls.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's two different spectrums, and then there's less people in the middle. I feel like you do have a lot of people that are completely spending everything.
Yeah.
And then you have some that are extremely, extremely conservative, almost to a fault. It's tough to, I guess, just find the middle ground and just make smart decisions.
Right.
I don't know if it's, obviously I'm exposed to deputies frequently, so I don't know if outsiders would see it the same, but yeah, there's a lot of spending.
Mm-hmm. It's, I don't know if you would call from where I'm seeing it as an outsider, because I'm looking straight into their situations,
correct.
But I've seen it many times over the years, and in the industry, it's even kind of like a thing that follows that profession. It's like, I can tell you what this file is going to look like before we even open it up.
Deputies rarely drive shitty cars, so that's I'm sure you've seen that once you dig in, but it goes up from there. Mm-hmm. It's just you start to look at what spouses do for work, and how income is supplemented. So.
Yeah. This thing here has been so much fun. I can put any sound or music or anything on here, and it's just been crazy how awesome it is. All right, so we are moving into trivia. We're calling this Brain Busters, and this is the third installment, and our record holder is they're tied, and 4 out of 5 is our record holder. So the bar is not all the way at the top, but we're going to start. Now, the categories, this is kind of a Jeopardy themed. So we've got 5 categories, but we're only going to go through 5 questions total. So you can do one of each. You can do 1 and 5 in all, anywhere in between. All right, so first category is going to be general knowledge. Are you smarter than a 5th grader? Maybe a 12th grader? We don't know.
Hopefully.
Let's find out. Real estate test questions plucked straight from the Florida Real Estate Salesperson 63-hour study guide test prep.
Okay.
All right. Florida facts, Florida history, geography, news, and politics. Mortgage matters, mortgage terms, products, and processes. And then superheroes. And Marvel and DC only. And it has the potential to go deep because my son wrote those, and he's a Marvel super
know
fan.
Nothing, so we are going to steer clear of the superheroes.
All right.
Let's do some general Florida knowledge.
Florida facts.
And then we'll do some test questions.
Okay. Well, we'll just go one at a time. We'll start out with...
You think we can chalk this up for my continuing ed or what?
I've taught continuing ed in the past. If we get if we get it approved through the state, I'm happy to.
Okay.
I've got a timestamp on here and everything. So, all right. So the first question in this category is, what is the official Florida state bird?
Oh my God, I just saw this too. I don't know.
You want to take a guess?
No, I don't even have a guess. It's probably going to be more embarrassing.
Okay. You get the wrong answer.
Yeah.
So it's a mockingbird.
Okay.
And I think that's a weird one. I would think it maybe, like, mockingbirds are kind of annoying. They're loud. They're not that pretty. I think maybe a blue jay or maybe a flamingo or something would be a cool Florida bird, but whatever. I didn't make that. All right. So we've got, I can repeat the categories if you'd like. Or,
no, that's okay. Let's do a test question.
Test question. Okay. Now, I will tell you that I tried not to go like super obscure with some of these crazy ones. So I tried to stay in the middle. All right. So, and this is multiple choice too.
Okay.
So that's a plus. And if you need me to repeat the choices, I'll be happy to. So number 1, what requirement does not apply regarding dwellings built prior to 1978? So what does not apply? First one, A, sellers and lessors must disclose the presence of known lead-based paint in all residential dwellings. B, sales contracts and leases must include specific lead-based paint warning and disclosures. C, buyers and tenants must acknowledge that they have received the warning and disclosure. Or D, buyers must have the property inspected for lead-based paint.
Just repeat the question. You don't have to repeat the answers.
What requirement does not apply regarding the dwellings built prior to 1978?
What was D?
Buyers must have the property inspected for lead-based paint.
It's that one because you have to disclose it. Is that a right answer?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's
I didn't want to have to make you repeat A, B, and C.
This one, that's the wrong answer.
Okay.
That's the right answer. Yeah. So you're good. There you go. That's right.
Yeah, they don't have to have it inspected. It's just making sure it's disclosed.
Everything disclosed. Yeah. You see properties often before 1978?
Surprisingly not.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, but it seems like the majority of them are going to be like 1990 and newer.
Mm-hmm. Well, in the suburbs, absolutely.
Yeah.
But you get over into the beaches and in the waterfronts and the old parts of Tampa. Absolutely.
You start to see the 60s, 70s.
Yeah, all over the place out there. All right, next category. Same category, next category. What do you think?
We'll do the same category.
Okay, next real estate question. All right. This is a great question. I didn't even put this together for you, but this is pulling from both your worlds. Practicing real estate without a license is A, first-degree felony, B, third-degree felony, C, first-degree misdemeanor, D, second-degree misdemeanor.
There's two of them that are. There's one that's a third-degree felony and one that's a first-degree misdemeanor, and there's two different things that I remember from the book.
This one's general practicing real estate. So I don't know.
Is it a first-degree misdemeanor? It's got to be the third-degree felony.
It's the felony. We're going to count that one. That works.
Yeah, there's two different questions that I remember frequently.
Yeah.
That were going back and forth between the third-degree felony and first-degree
This is not part of the game, but do you know how many square feet in an acre?
Not offhand.
Yeah. That's one thing that stuck with me out of my
What
real
is
estate.
it?
43,560.
Now that you say that, because when you're photographing the test book before you go in there to take your test,
that's crazy.
The number comes back.
Crazy what sticks with you on things like that. That one and riparian rights. You know what riparian rights? It's the water.
The water, yeah.
Yeah, and that's all I remembered. It's just like the water. That's what it means. I said last time when somebody missed a real estate question, I said, if anybody's listening to this, if you've ever taken a state license before, then you know that they just put you through the ringer for no reason.
Yeah.
And then when you're done, it doesn't matter that it's not all in your head because it's all everywhere else.
Yeah.
You just go, you know where to find it. All right. We got two more questions. Same category or new category?
Let's go back to Florida.
Florida facts. You're brave on these Florida facts.
I know, only being here for a little bit of time.
I wasn't expecting that.
We'll use it as a learning experience.
Okay. All right. Now, I think this one's easy, but I'm a native.
Okay.
What is the largest lake in Florida?
God, is it Okeechobee?
It is.
All right.
Yeah, and you can't miss it on the map. It's right there in the middle.
I was getting a little nervous there, but
yeah, no, you're good.
I feel better now.
And you're into fishing, aren't you?
I'm not.
You're not. Cabot is.
Cabot's into fishing.
Yeah.
My wife and I, when we're out on the boat, it's recreational.
Okay.
And drinking and sandbarring.
Yeah,
that's a thing.
I'm Florida born and raised, and for some reason the boat gene missed me. I don't know. I've just never been.
I think we've acquired it in the last 2.5 years.
Yeah. It's fun.
Cabot gave us a great head start to what marina and what areas to go, and we've kind of jumped off and fully started exploring out there.
That's
It's been an awesome time.
All right. Final question. New category, same category?
Let's do General Florida again.
General Florida. All right. So this one, angering many key lime pie lovers, what treat became Florida's official state dessert in March of 2022 through an act signed by Ronnie D.
Man. I have no idea.
I'll be happy to give you a context clue.
All right, I'll take it.
What happens around our area?
Is it strawberry shortcake?
It's strawberry shortcake.
I was gonna go there, but I
I
felt like it was a Plant City thing, so I didn't put it out there.
No, he was there. I think I saw a news article about it last year. He was there and like.
Do you know they had record populations this year at the Strawberry Festival? It was wild.
Yeah.
Like lines for way longer than you wanted to wait. I can tell you that.
Mm-hmm. That's their big money maker. You know, for the year.
It's huge.
That's how they make or break their year is with that. And I've got a love-hate relationship with Plant City. I've lived there the majority of my life. I've been in Brandon, Tampa, lived out of state for a year, and mostly Plant City.
I love the pride that people have that live out there.
Yeah.
It's just...
The thing I don't like about it, there's a lot of things I don't like, but one of the things is that whole side of town with the festival is just depressed. Like, it's just the 10 days a year. They use all that. 10
days a year, they thrive.
Yeah. And the rest of the time, it's just fences and parking lots. Yep. And I think that I don't like that's where it is. Yep. You know, the fairgrounds is one thing because the fairgrounds is like outskirts between things, like off the interstate, you know, kind of like that. But this one is like right here in the middle of the city. And I've never loved that. And they just keep expanding. You know, they bought the church that's there and they just keep pushing and it keeps getting bigger and bigger. Personally, it's my little beef with that, but whatever. All right. So we are nearing the end of our interview here. And wanted to say I really appreciated you coming on and talking and sharing. And do you have anything else you want to get into?
I think we covered everything. Okay. I think just a closing.
Okay.
I think the biggest message, I guess, for me is, you know, and my close friends would obviously know this. The real estate part is my passion. Mm-hmm. So I feel like when it comes time to, you know, people reaching out with questions and making it like a formal, I'm hiring a realtor, like that's not the case. Yeah. So
it really is a lifestyle. It's like it follows you home. It's you can do it on a weekend. You can do it on a Sunday. You can do it on a Monday morning. It doesn't matter.
Like when I leave here, I'm going home to inspect a home improvement project that somebody was working on, you know, today. So this is something that I live and breathe every day.
The questions are just what you're already thinking about anyway.
Correct. Like most of the time when somebody texts me or calls me, I'm already at my computer anyway. Mm-hmm. And I feel like it's almost embarrassing, like when I get phone calls or text messages, like, hey, can you check into this? And, well, I'm actually at my computer.
I got it right here. Yeah. I'm standby.
Yeah. So, yeah, I just would hope that somebody would feel comfortable, you know, social media followers or friends that maybe I haven't talked to in a while in Florida or, you know, even back home in Buffalo, if they have any questions, just to reach out. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I love getting people started earlier in the process than later. It just is such an advantage for them, you know, and me to, you know, to get background on them and really help them. So
you seem like the type of guy that would answer a question, provide some value, and sit back. You know, not necessarily get on and text them every day and say, hey, are you ready to buy your house yet? You ready to buy your house?
That's not me.
Call them 15 times a week.
Because I hate that approach.
Yeah.
But if somebody's obviously ready to pull the trigger quickly, like obviously you have to move swiftly. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I'm 100% all in to get it done.
Yeah.
So.
Great.
I appreciate you having me on. It's been great. I love the setup.
Yeah, it's something it's in its infancy. This is number 5 that we're in now. So I'm trying to, you know, I think we've got a pretty good format. We've had some really good conversations over this time, and not everybody's going to have the appetite for a extended, long form type discussion. But I feel like the people that do, that's awesome. You know, who else gets to like listen to their friend or coworker or cousin or whatever, you know, and people put it on. I myself personally, I put on podcasts at night and I sleep. Some put me to sleep. I put on news. I'll put on whatever. People talking for whatever reason. It gets me.
I've started again. You know, my wife listens to them all the time on her commute home from work, and I think it's kind of rubbed off a little bit.
Yeah. Well, there's just so much there's so much information and opinions, and I try to stay very impartial on these things. It's like my whole goal of this is this is not about me. This is not about my business. This is not about anything I do. I haven't mentioned anything about that other than the fact that I'm in the industry, and I wanted this to be more of a community-based thing to where you have a platform and you have enough content to put out for the next month on social media and marketing and whatever, and I think every agent and every guest on the show is going to take that and react to it in their own way. Some people are, not going to want to share anything about it, and other people are going to put it out and blast out to all platforms. Another thing that I talk about is helping you. If you wanted to deliver a message to anyone right now, if you wanted to make a short intro for whoever, a database, mailer, email, newsletter, like whatever you got going on. Everybody's different with how they market themselves, but this is a great opportunity for it. You can take excerpts out of things like this, and you can take, you can deliver points. You can come on to talk about things. And I haven't had to invite anyone to this show yet because people have been like, I want to go on there. I want to do that, because hopefully the guest or whoever it's going to be sees the value of
there's 100% value
being out there, and then having all the different clips and content and shorts and reels and stuff you can pull, and the audio, and just I think it's a great way to spread.
There's a surplus of awkward selfie videos as you're walking into a home, but actually having, good video, good context.
Yeah, I think that's a real thing. And I've thought about maybe, my target audience in this is going to be, or is, real estate agents, industry people. And when I say agents, I really mean industry people, insurance, home inspectors, contractors, who's involved in the housing world. I've got a document that we refer to sometimes, and I've got every person that touches a transaction in a real estate deal. And people don't get it. They think when they're buying a house, Ryan's going to show me the house, Ryan's going to sell me the house. But what about this army of people who were involved to get it done? So that's my audience. And then my other audience is people either interested in Florida or people that live here and are looking to make a move or whatever. So they always say that if you're trying to reach everyone, you're not going to reach anyone. You have to niche it down to a certain population. And that's my goal. That's what I'm trying to do. So I'm going to keep at it. I'm here doing it. So,
well, thanks again for having me. I appreciate it. And hopefully I can get back on at some point and cover some more topics.
I'm totally up for it. Yeah. Thanks for coming, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Will do.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah. You're welcome. I enjoy this because, something that I've always had to deal with is